In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use the Rekordbox software in conjunction with the CDJ 2000s to make your DJ experience in the club a whole lot easier. I know there are a lot of DJs out there who just haven't had the money and time to invest in a full CDJ setup for their own home use, but still want to be able to take advantage of all the features of the CDJs at the club. I also want to make a quick point that there is still nothing wrong with using your controller. However, it is good to get to know the features and capabilities of the flagship CDJ range so that when you show up in a club, you can use them if you need to. Plus, if you're anything like me, you'll probably fall in love with them and get addicted to buying all the gear. There are a couple advantages to using the Rekordbox system over lugging your controller everywhere you go with you. The most important of these advantages, I think, is that you no longer have to carry around a laptop. All you have to carry in your pocket is one of these. This is a USB flash drive, and the CDJ 2000s support up to 32 gigabyte flash drives, and you can load a couple hundred WAV audio files and thousands of 320 MP3s on a 32 gig stick. Also, with the CDJ setup, you don't have to worry about complex cabling or wiring with any Serato boxes or external controllers that you'd have to wire into a main mixer. Instead, all you do is show up, plug in, and you're good to go. I hope that by the end of this video, I will have at least convinced you to give Rekordbox a try on your next gig. So without further ado, let's show you how to get your tunes onto one of these and get playing.
Our very first step is going to be to download the Rekordbox software from Pioneer's website. To do that, you simply go to pioneerdj.com, hover over the Products tab, and click on the Software button. From this point, you're going to go ahead and click on whichever is applicable to you. You can use Rekordbox on your smartphone or tablet. It's both supported on iOS and on Android, but for this example, we're going to be using the computer version. When you open up Rekordbox for the first time, it's going to look something like this. You're not going to have any tracks imported to it. So what you need to do is you need to navigate under File and then Import, and then you can import either an entire folder or a single track. Once your tracks import, they will take a few moments per track to analyze and create what's called the waveform for it. This waveform is what Rekordbox reads and calculates a beat grid for the track with. It's important to note that one of the most powerful features of Rekordbox and the whole CDJ range is the quantize feature, which keeps your DJ decks in time and your effects in time and everything sounding really smooth and professional throughout your entire mix. So it goes without saying that your beat grid information needs to be accurate. So I've just imported this track, and Rekordbox has gone through and created this whole waveform, and then it has created this beat grid that you see indicated with red and blue lines. Now, the red is considered the one beat or the start of each phrase or bar, and this is what Rekordbox uses to quantize all of your data across all the CDJs. So if you analyze a track, and if we zoom in here, and I got to this menu by clicking on this little arrow over in the corner over here, we can zoom in and see exactly where our beat grid is in relation to the actual track. So we can see here that it's off by probably about a 1/16. This happens occasionally in Rekordbox. It doesn't get it 100% accurate all the time, especially with live music. With most electronic music, it's good, but in some instances like this, you need to be able to correct it after you've analyzed it. So we're going to edit the beat grid information using these 8 buttons down here. This first button changes where the start of each phrase is. So if this actually wasn't the start of this bar, I could change it by scrubbing to the nearest other first marker and selecting this button, and it'll change that to the one beat. But for this track, it got it pretty good and is accurate with its depiction of the first beat. These next 2 buttons here will stretch the beat grid either left or right while maintaining the first beat position. These 2 buttons effectively change the BPM of the beat grid. The next buttons here involve lining up directly underneath the cursor with the beat grid. So if you scrub to wherever in the track the first beat is, then you can select this set beat marker button, and it will automatically snap the grid to that point. And you can zoom in as far as you want to make sure that it is accurate and on the first beat, and then make little modifications using the left and right arrow buttons. The next 2 buttons are for doubling or halving the BPM. This is particularly useful for dubstep and drum and bass tracks. that may sometimes read as 70 or 140. And depending on what you personally count it as, some people use 70, some people use 140 in regards to dubstep. If you count using 70, then you're going to want to switch all your tracks to 70. Conversely, the same is true with 140 BPM. So once you've lined up this first beat on your beat grid, you're going to want to scrub through a little bit of the track and see that it has stayed in time throughout the entire duration. So you're looking for specific points in the track where the beat is very strong. So for example, there's a drop right here on this red marker. So we want to make sure that it is right on where it should be. And as you can see, it's very, very close, but we could nudge it a little bit to the left or contract it to make it line up just perfectly with that. What that will do is it'll make sure that when you're mixing, if you decide to set a loop or trigger an effect, it will remain exactly on time throughout the entire track. You can see if the track were to drift a little bit and be off by about 1%, then all of your quantized effects, loops, etc. are all going to be off by that percent error. So this is the easiest part of analyzing the track. Once you've gotten in here and lined up your beat grids, then you can start doing fun stuff like programming hot cues and cue banks. Each track can store 10 memorized cue points, and the cue bank is on the right-hand side of the screen up here by the waveform. All the controls on the upper left-hand side of the Rekordbox software window are identical to how the function is on the CDJs. What I typically do is I set the first cue point and save it into memory so that when it pulls up on the CDJ, it's instantly ready to go the second I hit play right from the cue point. So to do this, all I'm going to do is enable the quantize button. This will make sure that any action that I do snaps to the nearest beat grid, and then I'm going to hit the cue button. And you'll see that it jumped right in line with the first beat. However, we still have to save this cue point to memory. We can hit the cue button, and it'll play just as long as we hold it down, just like it would on a CDJ. We can also hit play and leave it be, just like you would on a CDJ. But we want to save this to memory so that when we export it, it saves all of our settings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to the memory button and set a memory cue. At this point, you'll see that the memory button has lit up on the screen, and we have one of our 10 cue slots filled. Then all you have to do is go throughout the track and find particular points of interest that you would like to set a cue point for. So I'm just going to go ahead and scrub through here a couple of times and set a couple cue points. So see, here I have stored 8 cue points so far of all the important features of the track or transitions of the track, from soft to loud or loud to soft, breakdowns, drops, etc. However, we can also store loops in the memory bank. For example, if I wanted to start off the track with a loop, simply scrub to the first cue point, set a cue, hit play, and then after your 8 beats has elapsed or however long, simply hit the out button on the loop section. And since we have quantize on, it's going to be perfectly in time every time. From here, you just follow the exact same steps as saving a normal cue. That means just simply pressing the memory button. We also have another feature that's new on the CDJ 2000 Nexuses, and that is what's called the active loop feature. If you enable active loop, it will immediately enable that loop once the track has gotten to the loop. So you no longer have to enable it yourself. As soon as it gets past that point, it'll automatically start the loop itself. This is really useful for the end of tracks where you might not have enough time to set a loop so that you don't run out of the track and leave you standing there looking like an idiot. It's just a nice little fail-safe way of making sure that your tune is going to be long enough to mix out of. We still have one more feature that we can save using the Rekordbox software, and that is hot cues. Setting a hot cue in Rekordbox is as easy as scrubbing to the nearest point that you want your hot cue to be at and clicking whichever button, A, B, or C, you want it to be set as. It automatically remembers the exact time in the track that that hot cue is going to be. So no matter what is happening in the track, as soon as I press the hot cue button, it'll jump right back to that point. This is really good for like vocal samples or any really cool instruments that you want to pick out of a track and play over and over. So for this track, I've gone ahead and programmed 3 hot cues, A, B, and C, 8 cue points, and 1 loop. However, we can't just copy and paste the music file from our computer onto a USB stick and then just plug it into a CDJ and expect it to work. What you have to do is you have to export your tracks through the Rekordbox software onto a USB stick. It sounds a lot more complex than it really is, but once you've got your track how you want it to be analyzed, you simply right-click on it, hover over Export Track, and then click on whichever device letter that you want to export it to. You can do this for hundreds of tracks at a time, however many you want, but since I just exported that one track, it took just a second. Once you've exported your track onto your USB flash drive, you can pull up into the club looking really cool with just your flash drive and plug it into the CDJ 2000. To access the files you just exported, you're going to want to press the USB button on whatever player you put the USB stick into. When you do this, you'll be able to scroll and find whichever tracks that you exported. You'll also be able to sort them by key, playlist, album, artist, pretty much anything that you want to set in the Rekordbox utility. To find that track that we just exported, I'm going to go to Artist. And since I have a couple thousand of tracks on this USB, it's a little bit difficult to scroll through using the encoder wheel. So here's a cool trick. All you have to do is hold down on the encoder wheel for a second and it'll pop up with a letter arrangement view. So you can scroll all the way down to M. We're going to find Matt Zoe. Scroll to the track that we just analyzed in Rekordbox, select the track, and it'll instantly load up with all those cue points we just saved. Now you can see we can take full advantage of the slip mode features, all the quantization features, and of course all of the manual cues and hot cues available on the CDJs. I'll show you how fast it is to actually start a track once you've selected it in the browser window. So I'm going to select it and hit play as soon as I possibly can. And it's playing and good to go. The CDJs also use what's called the Pro DJ link, which allows you to use this USB flash drive to access music on all of the players in the Pro DJ link. You can link up to 4 CDJs together, but it's important to remember that maybe not all clubs or setups will have them all linked together appropriately. For this reason, it's smart to bring more than one USB stick unless you know exactly what kind of environment you're going to be playing in. To pull up the files that you've analyzed in Rekordbox on a different CDJ than the one that you have plugged in the USB to, you can see I don't have the USB in this one, but I still want to be able to read my files that I have in the other CDJ deck. To do this, all you have to do is hit the link button so long as they are linked together with network cables through the back. And that's really it. It's as simple as importing all your files into the Rekordbox software, analyzing them, making sure that the beat grids are in time, and then exporting them onto a USB drive stick so that you can show up with just your USB flash drive and be the cool DJ.